Hey guys, Joshua Laycock here, Lifestyle Evolution. So today, I'd like to speak about something that is hard to talk about, is unpopular, but is something that I think a lot of people need to deal with. And this is this concept of social anxiety and a victim mentality. There's a guy who works in our office, young guy, he's probably early 20s. He's a university co-op, comes in to do some work. And I like to go out of my way to get to know the young people that come into our office. I enjoy it. I like chatting with them. I like finding out what they're doing at school, what they like about this opportunity, why they're here, what their ambitions are. It's just something that I enjoy doing. And you know, I've made a lot of really good friendships from some of the guys in our office who've come through, because our company employs a lot of these. And anyway, this young guy's been here for a couple months, and I've tried to introduce myself. I've tried to say hello. I've tried to, everything from, hey, how are you? Would you like to have a conversation, to maybe just making eye contact for a tenth of a second to let him know that, hey man, I'm a friendly guy. You don't have to be terrified of me. And he sits in his desk, crumped up, not looking at anybody. At lunch, he sits at his desk, crumped up with a book, not talking to anybody. And he's going to miss out on a huge amount of life because people notice this. Nobody can connect with him. And I asked one of the other admin in the area, I said, is that guy okay? And they're like, oh yeah, shit. He's got social anxiety and he's okay with it. I said, okay. And here's the thing. The distance between not being ashamed of having social anxiety and being totally fine with it and or almost wearing it as a badge of honor is miles apart. But I think, going back to the same freaking themes over and over again, we live at these extremes. I either have to be ashamed of it or I have to be completely proud of it. No. You know what? There's somewhere in between. And let me back up and let you know, I am someone who knows social anxiety very intimately. It was paralyzing for me, literally paralyzing. There was a good chunk of primary school and a good chunk of high school that I physically couldn't bring myself to leave the house because anxiety around anything. I went to a pretty tough high school. I was afraid of, I couldn't even tell you what I was afraid of because I was a pretty tough guy. I was a captain of the football team. I was popular. I'd like to think I was a pretty good looking guy. I didn't have it bad. But for whatever reason, that combination of girls and the potential for drugs and drink and not being the smartest kid in school and all these kind of things, whatever they were, I had no on paper reason for being anxious. But there were many days that I couldn't bring myself to leave the front door, to go out the front door and take myself to school. It was so bad that the girl that I was like coveting all through high school, when she finally recognized who I was and was like, hey, you're kind of cool, let's hang out, I couldn't even leave the house to walk to school with her because I was so terrified of whatever life was throwing at me. A conversation at school would send me running to the bathroom for fear of throwing up or worse at school. So I get social anxiety, right? Please know that this comes from a place of experience here. But simply being okay with it and wearing it almost as a badge of honor or as some excuse for not living life is going to absolutely destroy you. No, it's a really horrible, uncomfortable thing that people have to work through. For some people, it might be medication or therapy or just slowly exposing yourself to fixing the problem, slowly introducing yourself to social situations. But I'm thinking about this poor guy in my office who's probably a smart guy. If he's in university and he's been hired by my firm to do some financial stuff, he's probably a pretty smart kid. But nobody there is going to know who he is. because he refuses to even make eye contact. And you know what? And I'm not ripping on him. I don't know his past. I don't know his history. But I'm ripping on the situation in general, that I'm seeing it become so common. You're not even capable of making eye contact. It's the first step. If you're nervous, if you're feeling anxiety, I get it. One, you're going to have to work through your shit. There's a reason why you're anxious. I don't know what it is. There's a lot of books that'll help you working through it, but you know what? There's a lot of therapists out there that will also help you work through it. And maybe your solution is, like I said, experiential. Maybe your solution is to help with some medication in the short run. But you got to work on your shit. Don't just accept it as being your steady state, because that is surrendering to life. It's like being out of shape and being like, well, fuck it. I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm okay with it. Don't be ashamed of who you are, but don't just embrace it and be like, everything's all right. But this social anxiety thing is real. I get it. My wife has had it as well. I hope that my kids don't have it. Odds are good they're going to be dealing with it. And we're trying to help them plan for how you're going to deal with these types of things. But you sure as hell don't address it and tackle it and own it by looking at your feet and by crumpling up, by having soft, limp handshakes and hoping to hell the world goes away. It's not a pleasant thing to deal with. But please, please, please work on it. Don't be ashamed of it. It is not a stigma. Talk about it with people who you care about. Talk about it with therapists. Read about things online. Join support groups. Do whatever you can, as long as the objective is to help you move past it. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen in a couple weeks. But if you chip away with it, I can't tell you when I stopped being anxious. Some days I still am, right? I remember being fully into university and even into my first few years of working professionally, where there was elements or times when something for whatever reason would trigger my anxiety. But you just have to recognize it for what it is, and you have to chip away at it. There was no moment where I was like, I am no longer anxious. It was, I'll show up at a party and I'll last 10 minutes. I'll make sure that I'll go to this thing, but I'll make sure that I can control as much as I can. I'm not going to take the transit. I'm going to take my car, which means I can't drink, and that's okay. Which means that. Or if I'm going out, if I'm traveling, some people love to travel and not have a clue what they're going to do. I need to know, where am I going to be? What hotel room is secured? How am I going to get from here to there? That's just part of who I am and how I'm wired. It doesn't mean that I don't experience life. It just means that I have to take a little bit of extra work to think about these things. And slowly just going to a party for 5 minutes, or giving myself 5 minutes to breathe and sit panicked in the bathroom before school. And okay, you got 5 minutes and you got to go out. No matter how scary it is, go. And then it was 3 minutes, and then eventually it was no minutes. You have to just chip away at it. You have to start to acclimate yourself to realizing that you're not going to die, because that's what it feels like, right? Like, anxiety is this really weird thing that you can't really explain, but it feels like you are going to literally die. And I get that. And it makes me sad that people are going through it. But what makes me even more sad is that we are wearing these challenges as badges of honor, that we are surrendering to the victim mentality of, I don't get to do that because of X. I have literally, this is a true story. I was halfway through a Spartan Beast, which is like a 24-kilometer something. And I was sore, and I was a little, not in as good a shape as I would have liked. And I was struggling a little bit. Not a big deal, but I was feeling just a little bit of like, man, why did I do this? And as I'm going down this hill, through mud and trees and falling water and cold, there was a guy with one leg and half of one arm and blind, being guided through this course by his father. And aside from the fact that it made me cry in the middle of there, because man, what a cool team. This guy was super friendly and having fun. There is nothing on this planet that man is saying, I don't get to do this because of that. So I'm sorry that you're dealing with anxiety. And it's real. But don't surrender to it. Start by looking people in the eye. Start by finding that person that when you look them in the eye, you get a friendly look back and you realize that person is an ally. Shake their hand firmly. Just start with, no, I'm great, thanks. How was your day? How was your weekend? That's awesome. Thanks very much. Don't hide. Don't run. Because that stuff just compounds and compounds. And then all of a sudden the weight, the power that you've given this anxiety will overcome you. And eventually it may become too much for you to shoulder. And that's probably the worst thing. To empower this thing over you. Whoever you are a powerful person. You have that capacity. Whatever bullshit that your mind is pulling on you, however it's making your body feel, whatever emotions it's conjuring up in you, that's the power of your brain. It's just the power of your brain fucking you around. If you can learn to understand it and to harness it and to take charge of that, the full power of that bullshit can be used to your advantage. And I mean that. Because when you can wrestle that down, when you can overcome that bullshit, when you can go, I'm feeling anxious. No, we're not doing this. Let's remind myself why this isn't going to happen, and we're going to kick the shit out of this day because you're not getting in my way. There's nothing that is going to stop you. If you play your cards right, it could almost be an advantage. Having to overcome those obstacles and putting yourself in the right place. But just start with one little step at a time. Look them in the eye. Shake their hand. Smile. And I think that you will find that life is a little bit more inviting than you think it might be, or that your brain seems to think it will be. If this is something that you're working through, hit me up, shoot me a DM, shoot me a message. I'd love to chat with you about it. Like I said, I've gone through it. I get it. My family has dealt with it. It's something that is there, and I can tell you, I am a recovering anxiety freak that it just doesn't have any hold on me anymore. Go look him in the eye, and I will talk to you tomorrow.